Welcome back to the Maximum Lawyer Podcast. I'm Jim Hacking.
And I'm Tyson Mudrix. What's up, Jimmy?
Looks like you got some great clouds there behind you, my brother.
Oh, man, I do. But I'm not next to the ocean like you are. Do you have clouds or are you good? I can't tell.
Well, it's weird down here in Florida. Maybe it's the same for David over in the Carolinas. The days start with clouds and then the sun comes out and burns them all off, and then they come back a little bit around sunset. So it's a hard knock life for sure.
It's very
perfect
cool.
Convertible weather.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce David just in case your connection doesn't hold up, Jimmy. So David has actually been on before. He was on with his brother. As he just put it, he's one of the OGMLs for sure. But let me do a little brief intro. David Haskins is the founder and CEO of Haskins & Company. He got his start in law firm marketing in 2009, helping his longtime friend, David Aylor, launch his new practice. They grew that practice to 4 locations in 3 years. Since then, he has worked with over 100 law firms, creating and implementing smart, aggressive growth strategies. Conferences and CLEs and podcasts frequently ask him to share his wealth of knowledge and experience about law firm marketing, SEO, intake, and firm management. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me back.
Before we jump in, and by the way, it's our pleasure having you back. But before we jump in, like where do you live in the Carolinas? Because I'm going to be in South Carolina. I'll be in Myrtle Beach in a couple of weeks. So I'm just curious.
Oh yeah, love Myrtle Beach. So that's the opposite side. I'm up in the upstate, northwest part of South Carolina, in Greenville. It's about halfway between Atlanta and Charlotte.
Damn. Well, I was hoping I could maybe just stop in and say hello, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Have you been to Myrtle Beach before?
No, first visit.
It is awesome. It is. My wife likes the some of the other beaches, Hilton Head and Charleston. They're more like the relaxed, beaches. Myrtle Beach is it's like Vegas for kids on the beach.
I love it. I love it. Perfect.
It is exciting.
David, why don't you reintroduce yourself to the group? I mean, a lot of people in the group know you and know your brother and your business and everything, but why don't you talk to us a little bit about, just give us a refresher, maybe since the last time we spoke or the last time we saw you at the conference, what's going on with you and your company?
Sure. We've grown, actually. I mean, I'll talk how everybody refers to things now, BC, before COVID and after COVID. We've grown a lot in the last year. We've added 8 new team members. So we're at 13 now. We have about 3 dozen clients all over the country. And we're doing web design, web marketing, SEO, and we're starting to help manage intake, something that I see a lot of people doing and a lot of people having trouble with. And there's a lot of aspects of intake that we see people don't realize that they're not implementing correctly, or they're not auditing or managing efficiently. So we're starting to help people with that as well.
All right, and I know we're not going to really talk about SEO today. We're going to be talking about something else. But before we get to the other thing, I want to talk about SEO a little bit more, because I know part of it's got to be frustrating as an SEO company whenever people aren't doing the intake properly, because they blame a lot of the things that they're doing wrong on you all, which is kind of interesting, I'm sure. But that's not even my question. My question is, has SEO changed over the last 10 years, or is it mostly the same, just small little things change? Because it seems like the principles are primarily the same: produce content, make sure you've got like meta tags and all that kind of stuff. And I can't even speak to it because I'm not knowledgeable about it. But it seems like the basic principles are the same. But yeah. I don't know.
Basic principles are the same, right? Like informative content that answers the query of the user, and authoritative signals like backlinks that Google can use to measure things like trust and authority in a site. Some of the major changes are how they're rolling out algorithm updates. I mean, if you remember like the last decade, maybe like a decade ago, 2012, 14, 16, an algorithm update would come out and it would be like almost like an inauguration. Like it was a big event. Panda is out and everybody learns from it. You get the guidance. Google would tell you, here's what we're looking for, here's what we corrected. And now now people just sit there and watch the tools like the SEO Grump or the the fluctuation tools to see if there's an update, and then people will scatter and discuss, did that meet the threshold? Do you think that was a major update? So that's what's happening. And then also I think they're getting farther away from a human written algorithm, and they are using, or they are driving towards the use of primarily what would be referred to as a black box AI. And a black box AI, actually, this little description, this little drawing right here, I was using it as an example. That is an item, and a black box AI says, I need to find the thing that matches this the best. And you don't have specification as an SEO or as a website owner of what part of this creation makes it a perfect match. You don't know if it's the shade or the speed at which it was written, the tools that it was drawn with. You just know that that's the perfect example. The black box takes the perfect example and it analyzes everything else against that, and then it ranks them in order. And so it's getting, and it has been over the years, to the point where even the Google the liaisons and those sorts of people, they don't actually know how the algorithm is working and how it will work in the future. So that's some of the biggest changes, I think. I like to say that black box AI is sort of like if somebody told you what kind of cookie they told you that they liked this cookie and they wanted you to make another one just like it. You have no idea what the recipe was, and you just try to make it and see if they like it. And you make it and you see if they like it. And you try different things and you see if they like it. Sort of like how black box AI works.
All right, well, let's talk about your new segue or your current segue into intake and the mistakes that you see people making. I've revamped our intake process over the last 6 months, and it's been a real game changer for us. And it all started because Harlan Schillinger had a little debate with me on John Fisher's Facebook page about whether I really knew how my leads were converting. And I think that's the first thing. Is I think most lawyers think that they're doing a great job of converting their leads, but they aren't really. So can you talk a little bit about that, and then the other kinds of mistakes that you've been seeing, David?
Sure. Yeah, I have that conversation with everybody, and it's started to become something that we not like filter for, but it's something that we want to get addressed up front. That if a firm is going to work with us, that we want to make sure that whatever we do to be successful, that they're set up to take advantage of that. So, for instance, I've talked with firms that are primarily referral based, and this is going to be their first SEO is going to be their first entrance into online marketing, or really an aggressive paid marketing strategy. And I have to coach them on the difference between what they're used to and what they're about to get. You're used to 8 out of every 9 calls being a case because your referral sources know what to refer you. And you're used to those people just coming pre-sold. If I called if I called my business lawyer and said, man, I just got a DUI, who would you recommend? Whoever he says, that's my lawyer. If that guy will take me, he's my lawyer. If I'm online searching and I'm trying to evaluate my options, I'm looking at people's credibility and their results, what other people are saying about them, and how informative and how authoritative or smart they look. I might give them a shot if I don't hear back quickly enough. If I kind of treated like I'm being blown off or like I'm dealing with a gatekeeper, then I that factors into my decision, and I might consider one of my other options. And so the other thing is that you will get, a lot more calls and opportunities in relation to the number of cases that you're going to get compared to, a referral based firm. And so we've seen intake problems. I have seen intake problems everywhere from a solo practice attorney who's answering everything on his cell phone, who has one part-time file clerk, up to a 50 lawyer office with 150 support staff who's got an operation so grand that they can't track all of the pieces and they can't audit for quality. And that firm, half of their calls for an entire week, there was some technical problem and they just diverted off to one voicemail of one paralegal's desk, and they had no idea until we got in there and audited it. So I've seen issues at every step of the way, from one up to 200. Just last week we did an audit for a firm, who's and they had a great intake, great initial call. The person that was doing it was a paralegal, and it was a very good, empathetic call. They also had automated text and email follow-up, and one of their other competitors. So we did a 4 competitor intake analysis where we called with leads to their office, and then we timed them and the other competitors, and we sort of ranked them and track how quickly their responses and stuff. And one of their competitors also had the email and text option, but theirs texted and emailed immediately. And the client that we were auditing, for whatever reason, there was some problem in their software. It didn't start the text and email follow-up until the next day. And so, that you're 18 hours later. And in the system, it looks like it's working, but if you don't test things, audit, and sort of comb through the data and find the opportunities that are missed, then there's a lot out there.
All right, David. So let's shift gears here a little bit, and you're going to talk about sobriety here. And you've been sober for about 10 years, and I can say, just from looking at you, you've changed drastically over the last, since I guess we've known you for about 4 years, maybe 5 years, and you've lost a lot of weight. You look much healthier. So we've known you for about half of this time. But I want you to talk about just your journey from going before being sober to now.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. It's something that I look back, and the decision to quit drinking is, I want to say it's the number one decision the best decision that I've ever made in my life, but I would probably save that for marrying my wife. But this was a prerequisite for sure, to marry my wife. So I think it would be. So I quit drinking in 2010, July 4th, 2010. I had a little background growing up. I grew up in like a fundamentalist Baptist environment, church, school, home. My parents never drank. They were teetotalers. So I kind of grew up, that just wasn't something that we did. When I got into college, I started hanging out with some friends. Drinking was just like it was just a fun thing to do. I mean, like it is for many college students. That fun binge drinking college attitude stayed with me for about another decade, after I left. And it was really stifling my professional and career growth and my life goals. And I didn't realize it until almost a decade later. So I had the type of alcoholism that I've noticed. There's a few types. One is the person who would hide a bottle in their desk drawer and nip on it when people aren't looking. The other is like a functioning alcoholic. I could go 3-4 days, like I wouldn't drink during the week. Thursday night would hit, And if I had one drink, I'd have 11. And then, like I'd ruin the next day. I'd have, binge drinking weekends, where I just accomplish absolutely nothing except just getting thrashed and having fun. And it seemed like at the time, like, well, it's just like what I do for fun. Like, just if you like climbing mountains or riding bikes, I just like partying. Um, and so in my 20s, I got arrested a couple of times. One time, actually, here in Greenville, my late father was a speaker pro tem of the House of South Carolina. There's a median that's named in his honor on Wade Hampton Boulevard, and I was passed out in my friend's car, and he pulled over in the median. In the median is named for my dad, and he passed out in his car too. And so we got arrested that night. I got arrested like 10 feet in front of the sign with my dad's name on it. And the officer that arrested me, he knew my dad too, and it was like, and so did the bond judge. It was just a brutal awakening. Very humiliating experience. Fortunately, nobody got hurt. That was about 2006. I got arrested, did some community service. And then when I had episodes like that, where I thought that I was, was going over the line or was too far, I would, sort of reel myself in and go, whoop, 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 we're at a point here. Let's take a 30-day break. I'd take a 30-day break here and there. I was doing that in the summer of 2010, which I was also waitlisted to go to Charleston School of Law that fall of 2010. So I waitlisted, on my best behavior. And I was on a 30-day break. And of course I made an exception because like this band that I loved was in town. So I thought I'll just add one day at the end. I just, it's just another, sort of blackout night. Got separated from my friends. And then I actually don't remember how the night ended. I woke up in the hospital on a gurney with an IV in my arm in the hallway. And I was still like pretty messed up. And I just went into the bathroom, pulled the IV out myself and left the hospital. It was 2 weeks later, I was doing some laundry and I found, we thought it was weird because the hospital told me that the police dropped me off. And at the time I was working for a lawyer and he said, the police don't drop you off at the hospital. They don't give you a ride to the hospital. And 2 weeks later, I'm doing laundry and I found that I had 2 tickets in my shorts that I was wearing that night. And so I had no recollection what happened. I went to court and I knew that I could just get an extension, but I just kind of wanted to figure out what happened. And the officer testified that, and keep in mind, I'm working at a criminal defense firm and I hear people's arrest stories and, the usual, like, I told that officer I'm going to have his badge and, wait till my lawyer hears this, and I hear all the dumb stuff that people would say. And the officer said that I called him an effing pig and I spit on his car. And I heard him say that and I was like, holy shit. I don't know who that was. Like, that's not just like blackout and you do some funny stuff and people have fun stories to tell later. Like, if I would do that, knowing what I know, like I hear these stories, week after week, if I would do that in that situation, like I could do anything. I had no control over myself. And I was like crying in the back of the court lobby. And I told the officer, man, I don't know how, but I'm going to prove to you that like, this isn't me. And I can't believe I did that. And so I decided to quit there and then. And I think because of the 30-day pauses that I had done before, it was easy to sort of like just shut it off. And I have a very addictive personality that if I was to give in, like just like my drinking was, if I was to give in to something, I could go all the way with it. I was really blessed in that when I decided to quit, it wasn't like a temptation thing. It wasn't like, I struggle with food and with eating and with food addiction. It wasn't like that. Um, I have been around alcohol the last decade. I make drinks for my wife at the house. She says I make great margaritas. I have no idea. I just take her word for it. So I was blessed in that when I sort of mentally shut off from drinking alcohol, that I didn't have like temptations, cravings, or anything like that. And it was at the point that it was 2010. I was 28. So my friends were not in the college, like, peer pressure phase. It was in the like, we're all grown-ups, we're about to be 30 phase. Um, so that was July 4th, 2010 was the last time that I drank. And since then, and I've talked with other friends that have either taken a hiatus or that have gone sober. When you find uh, all sorts of new things to consume your time and your energy and your focus and your passion. And so, one of those things for me was learning. I forgot how much I loved to learn. Um, I learned a lot really on the job. I taught myself how to code, taught myself how to edit video, I taught myself SEO, all these things, and also just learning. I've done at least a book a month since then in the last decade, either physical book or audiobook. Have learned so much, and from the other people that I've talked to, even if it's just a 90-day pause or something like that, you find things that you're really passionate about that will fill your time that you used to just default to fill it, with alcohol. But I look back and, I tell my wife, like, I'm so glad that you met me in 2011 and not in like 2006 or something. Um, uh, because I feel like a totally different person. Um, and so I know that's something that a lot of maybe attorneys in the group, or just people in the profession struggle with. Um, I know there's a lot of resources available, and it's not the same journey for everybody. I mean, some people reach the point where like an officer is telling you that you did, like, short of physically attacking him, like one of the stupidest things you could do in an arrest that you absolutely know any sober day of the week not to do. Um, and for some people, it's a DUI conviction or injury or death that does to change their perception. And so I've also known from other friends that I've talked to that even people who have just decided to try sobriety, that it wasn't like a hindrance in their life and it was causing their life to go off the rails. That have just decided to try it, they find, like I said, they find that new passion, the new things to fill their time up with. So
I like that advice, David, and thank you for sharing your story. I just want to ask you real quick, because we're getting towards the end, and I'm really glad you told that story. You go to a lot of legal conferences. You obviously work with a lot of lawyers. What do you think is the state of lawyerdom as it relates to alcohol? Like, what have you observed as a sober person for 10 years when you go to these conferences, and what are your thoughts on it? And I know you don't want to pass judgment on anybody else, and I get that, but just generally, what do you observe?
well, I mean, you guys deal with the worst parts of people's lives, and 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 you have to do it in a way that's objective, where you can't sink your feelings in and do what you feel. You have to look at things objectively and have very difficult decisions, difficult conversations with people. I mean, it's almost like if you're a divorce attorney, imagine getting divorced every week. I mean, it's kind of like the emotional, journey that you guys are on. And so I don't, it's not surprising at all that the profession or that the industry has higher rates of addiction or alcoholism. I will say I've seen so many people, even people that I haven't met on Facebook or hadn't read my stories before, there's a lot of sober people like that I meet in the conference circuit, and you'll just kind of notice somebody's always drinking Diet Coke or something like that, or you'll notice you'll get to talking. We went at the dinner one time, and everybody at the table ordered wine, and I ordered a Diet Coke. And the guy next to me goes, "Oh, rough night last night?" I said, "Rough about a decade." He said, "I hear you." But there's a lot of other lawyers out there. You wouldn't know it if you didn't know them. There are so many people in the industry that I have met, that have reached out to me or that I've met in person at conferences and stuff that are. So there's a lot of support out there for you.
All right, David, we're going to end it there. I'm going to wrap things up. Before I do, I want to remind everyone to join us in the Facebook group. There are great people like David in the Facebook group, so join us there. If you're interested in the guild, go to maxlawguild.com, where we have a lot of high-level conversations, and you can also get access to Maximum Lawyer and Minimum Time for free whenever you get a guild membership. And if you don't mind just taking a couple seconds as you're listening to the rest of this episode, giving us a 5-star review, we would greatly appreciate it. Jimmy, what's your hack of the week?
All right. Well, before I get to our hack of the week, I did want to mention MaxLawCon 2021. It'll be October 12th and 13th with a bonus day for the guild members on October 11th. That will be at the Ameristar Casino in St. Louis. Tickets are on sale. And through the beneficence of one of our members who is also a recovering alcoholic, we will have an AA meeting at the conference on I think Wednesday morning, so that'll be good. We want to support people's sobriety and people doing their best. So I'm really glad that we're going to do that, and I'm really excited about the conference. For my hack of the week, I was listening to a great interview with Guy Kawasaki, former Macintosh evangelist. He was on with our friends Joe Fear and Matt Wolf on their podcast, and he was talking about the Guy Kawasaki quadrants. And if you think about a quadrant with the vertical being unique and the horizontal being value, that your firm is going to fall in one of those 4 quadrants. So if you chart it that way, with unique going up and down and value creation going left and right, you really want to be up and to the right. You want to be in that quadrant where you're both unique and creating value, because otherwise you're just either a clown or you're competing with everybody else on price. So you really have to figure out and spend some time thinking about, how do I make my firm and my value proposition unique and also creating as much value as possible. I really liked it. It's something simple for me to be able to envision and focus on.
I love it, Jimmy. That's a good one. Pretty good. All right, David, you know the routine, man. What's your tip or hack of the week?
I think Amazon Prime now. I don't think enough people use it or know about it, or maybe it has become more popular over the pandemic. But we don't have it in Greenville. But whenever I travel, I'm always aware of Prime Now. We were at a conference in Vegas, and my buddy didn't have a black belt to go with his suit, and he said, "Oh, I'll just grab one downstairs in the boutique." And if we walked down there, the cheapest belt was $600. I said, man, I got you. Carhartt, $28 for an extra 6. They'll be here within an hour. So Amazon Prime now. Anytime that I'm traveling, it's like having your own like concierge or butler.
So I didn't realize this was a completely separate app. I thought it was a part of the regular Prime app. I did not realize it until you just said that.
There we go, man.
It's a great PSA, because I'm thinking like, why can't I hear all these people talking about getting their stuff within an hour or two, and it's not showing up on my apps. Like, oh, maybe it's just not in my area. Let's get on the damn app. Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you've got to have it. I mean, it happens all the time. Like when I'm traveling and I need like extra chargers and cases and that kind of stuff.
That's awesome. Very cool. Thanks for sharing that. That makes my day. All right. Well, my tip of the week is text expander. I know that Ryan McKean had mentioned this a long time ago to me. I didn't look into it, and then he mentioned it in the Guild the other day. And it's just a really easy way of typing in short amounts of text and then giving you whatever information you need. Like you can, like, for example, let's say you need to write your address, because like if David's like, hey man, come on over, and I'm like, hey David, what's your address? He can type in like a few letters and it freaking just puts his entire address in there. It's fantastic. So text expander, it's an app. There's also, I think, an online version too, but I highly recommend it. David, thanks so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate you sharing your story. I know I don't know. I mean, it's not always easy for people to share their stories like you did. It seems like you're pretty comfortable with it, but thank you so much for coming on and sharing.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks, gents. See you, bud.
Bye, guys. Thanks, David.